There's a reason silence has been considered one of the greatest forms of strength throughout history. Because silence isn't empty, it's full of intention. It's a language in itself, and often it's the loudest voice in the room. When someone treats you as if your presence is optional, when they walk away without explanation or return when it's convenient for them, your instinct might be to text back, to demand clarity, to prove a point. But here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Every time you respond, you hand them the power. And every time you choose silence, you reclaim it. Think about it in any interaction. The one who reacts is always in a weaker position than the one who decides. Most people text back out of impulse, not choice. They respond because they want closure, or they're afraid of appearing cold, or they still crave some piece of connection. But reacting is not the same as responding. Reacting means you're letting their message dictate your emotions. Responding, or in this case, not responding, means you're in control. You're not being pulled by their timing or their intentions. You're operating from your own values and your own standards. And that's what this is really about. Not texting them back is not a petty move. It's a profound declaration of self-respect. It says, I am not going to negotiate my worth with someone who already showed me they couldn't see it. It says, I don't need to explain myself to someone who wasn't listening the first time. It says, my peace is more important than their curiosity. Silence in that moment is not passive, it's active. It's you refusing to participate in a conversation that doesn't deserve your voice. Psychologically, silence also disrupts patterns. When someone expects you to reply when they're used to your availability, your absence becomes impossible to ignore. They're forced to confront the reality that they no longer have the same access to you. And that often is more powerful than any long message you could write. Because words can be debated, twisted, dismissed, but silence can't be argued with. It just is. And it forces them to sit with themselves. This isn't about winning or losing. It's not about playing games. It's about shifting your focus from them back to you. You see, every text you don't send is a vote for your future. Every moment you don't waste explaining yourself is energy invested back into your healing. Most people underestimate how much power they give away through small acts. A quick reply here, a late-night message there. But those small acts add up, and they shape how others see your boundaries. If you constantly make yourself available to someone who treated you like an option, they will never learn to see you as anything more. Philosophically, silence also speaks to detachment, not indifference, but liberation. It's a sign that you no longer need to control the outcome. You're not texting back because you trust that the right people won't need convincing to stay. You're not seeking validation from someone who already failed to give it. You're no longer chasing closure because you've realized closure was never in their hands to begin with. It was always in yours. And the irony is, the moment you stop chasing, the moment you stop explaining, the moment you stop filling the silence with words, that's the moment you truly start to heal. Because silence creates space, space to reflect, space to grow, space to redefine your standards. It's the quiet confidence of someone who knows they deserve more and is no longer willing to settle for less. So the next time your phone lights up with a message from the past, remember this: you are not obligated to respond. Your silence is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the sound of you choosing yourself over chaos. And in a world where everyone is shouting to be heard, sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is absolutely nothing at all. One of the hardest truths you'll ever have to accept is this: people don't change because they say they will. They change because they decide to, and most never do. That text you just got, the one that made your heart skip, that pulled you right back into that emotional spiral, it's not a sign of growth. It's not a new chapter. 9 times out of 10, it's the same story starting over again. And if you reply, you're not giving someone a second chance. You're signing up for the same lesson you already learned. We love to believe in potential. That's part of being human. We want to think people can evolve, that an apology means transformation, that this time will be different. But here's what most people don't realize. Words are cheap. Patterns are expensive. Words cost nothing to speak. Patterns require effort, consistency, discipline, and they reveal everything. If someone repeatedly ignored your boundaries, disappeared when things got hard, or treated your emotions like an afterthought, that's not an accident. That's a pattern. And if they're reaching out now with a "Hey, I miss you," or "I've been thinking about you," it's not evidence that they've changed. It's evidence that the cycle is about to restart. And let's be honest, how many times have you answered that text before? How many times have you heard the same promises, believed the same apologies, convinced yourself that this time they really mean it? And how many times did it end the same way? Most of us don't fall into new traps. We return to old ones because they're familiar. We mistake familiarity for safety, and we confuse comfort with growth. But growth isn't comfortable. Growth is choosing to break the cycle even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Psychologically, people repeat behavior because it works. If disappearing and then texting you weeks later always gets a response, why would they change? If half-hearted apologies are enough to bring you back, why would they try harder? Your reaction teaches them how to treat you. Every time you reply, you reinforce the idea that they can drift in and out of your life without consequence. But the moment you stop responding, the moment your silence replaces your forgiveness, you disrupt the pattern. And when the pattern breaks, their behavior loses power. This is where most people struggle. They confuse someone's regret with someone's readiness. Regret is easy. It's an emotion anyone can feel when they lose access to your presence. Readiness is different. Readiness shows up not in their words, but in their actions. Consistent, sustained, self-driven actions over time. And if you're being honest with yourself, most of the people who text you back from the past aren't ready to be different. They're just uncomfortable being without you, and that's the trap, mistaking their discomfort for their devotion. You see, most of the time, it's not that they suddenly realized your worth. It's that they realized they missed the way you made them feel. And that's not love, that's convenience. That's not commitment, that's comfort. And if you answer that message, you're stepping right back into a story that's already shown you its ending. So here's the truth you need to anchor into. Patterns don't lie. People can talk about change all day, but unless you see the pattern shift, unless you see consistent actions over time, nothing has changed. And until you see that, the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to participate. Because your refusal forces reality to surface. It draws a line in the sand and says, the old way no longer works here. So the next time you're tempted to text back, pause and ask yourself, is this a new beginning, or is this the same story wearing a different mask? Most of the time, deep down, you already know the answer. And that's why the smartest move you can make is to step out of the cycle entirely. Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do for them and for yourself is to stop believing their words and start trusting the pattern. And when you do, you stop repeating the past and start protecting your future. Let's talk about one of the most overlooked truths in human relationships. Closure is not something someone gives you. It's something you decide for yourself. We spend so much of our lives waiting for that perfect conversation, that heartfelt apology, that final explanation that makes everything make sense. We tell ourselves we'll move on once they text us back, once they admit they were wrong, once they explain why they left. But that's the trap. Because when you make your healing dependent on someone else's actions, you hand them control over your peace. And the moment you do that, you stop being free. Think about how many times you've reopened old wounds by responding to a message you knew you shouldn't. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was hope, maybe it was that tiny voice saying, "What if this time it's different?" And yet, almost every time, instead of closure, you got confusion. Instead of peace, you got chaos. Instead of healing, you got the same emotional roller coaster that left you drained in the first place. Why? Because closure doesn't come from them. It comes from you deciding that their explanation, or lack of one, no longer has power over you. There's a deep psychological reason for this. Our minds are wired to seek resolution. Unanswered questions gnaw at us. It's why people replay conversations over and over in their heads, searching for meaning that might never come. But here's the truth. The need for closure is not a sign that they owe you more. It's a sign that you haven't given yourself permission to move on. The day you stop needing their words to validate your experience is the day you take your power back. And your emotional energy is too precious to waste chasing closure from someone who's already shown you they can't give it. Every text you send, every reply you craft, every late-night conversation you rehearse in your mind, that's energy leaving your body and going into a dead end. Imagine what would happen if you redirected even half of that energy into building your future instead of trying to rewrite the past. Imagine how much stronger, happier, more grounded you would feel if you stopped seeking peace from the same place that shattered it. Protecting your emotional energy isn't selfish, it's survival. It's understanding that your attention is a currency and your peace is an asset. The more you spend it on people who drain you, the less you have to invest in yourself. And that's why not texting back is more than just ignoring a message. It's setting a boundary that says, "My healing is mine, my peace is mine, and I refuse to give either away." Philosophically, this is about reclaiming authorship of your story. Because the moment you stop waiting for their apology, you start writing your own ending. The moment you stop needing them to explain, you stop letting them define what happened. You decide that the chapter is closed not because they said so, but because you did. And that's a profound shift. It's the difference between living reactively and living intentionally. It's the difference between being stuck in a loop and stepping into your next chapter. The truth is, no text, no message, no explanation will ever undo the past. It won't erase the hurt and it won't rewrite the story, but you don't need it to, because the power to heal has never been in their hands, it's always been in yours. And when you realize that, you stop chasing closure like it's something external and start cultivating it from within. So the next time that notification lights up your screen and your heart tells you to respond, pause. Ask yourself, is this going to bring me peace, or is it going to reopen the wound? Most of the time, you already know the answer. And if the answer is pain, then the most powerful thing you can do is choose silence. Not because you're weak, not because you're bitter, but because you're finally protecting what matters most. Your emotional energy and your inner peace. Because the truth is, closure doesn't arrive in a text message. It arrives the moment you stop waiting for one. At the end of the day, everything we've talked about, silence, patterns, emotional energy, leads here, choosing yourself. Because the truth is, the most powerful response you will ever give to someone who took you for granted is not a clever text, not a final confrontation, not even a dramatic goodbye. It's a life that's so full, so rich, so grounded in self-worth that their absence stops mattering. The ultimate revenge is not proving them wrong. It's proving to yourself that you never needed their validation to begin with. Here's the trap most people fall into. They believe that healing has to be witnessed. That if they become successful, happy, or whole again, the person who hurt them must see it for it to mean something. But that's still centering your life around them. That's still making their attention the prize. True growth is when their opinion is no longer relevant. It's when you stop needing them to see your worth because you see it so clearly that their perception becomes meaningless. Choosing yourself is deeper than self-care and stronger than self-love. It's self-loyalty. It's waking up every day and deciding that your peace, your joy, your time, and your future are not up for negotiation. It's saying, I refuse to shrink myself just to fit into someone else's comfort zone. It's realizing that you're not losing anything by letting them go. They're the ones losing access to a version of you they'll never get again. And let's be honest, when someone reaches out after disappearing, they're not expecting silence. They're expecting the old you. The one who waited, the one who explained, the one who settled, the one who was so desperate for their attention that they accepted crumbs. But when you don't text back, when you choose to invest that energy into yourself instead, you become someone they don't recognize anymore. And that's when the tables turn, because now you are the one who is scarce. You are the one who's no longer accessible. And that scarcity, that strength, that self-respect, it commands more power than any message you could ever send. Psychologically, this shift is transformational. It rewires your self-image from someone who needs to be chosen to someone who is the choice. It changes the narrative from "I hope they come back" to "I hope I never forget my worth." And once you internalize that, you stop chasing closure, you stop seeking validation, and you stop negotiating your value. You don't just heal, you evolve. Philosophically, choosing yourself is the highest act of love because it's the foundation for every other form of love. When you choose yourself, you no longer tolerate disrespect. You no longer confuse attention with affection. You no longer cling to people who leave you empty. You stop trying to fix people who were never yours to fix. And you realize that the version of you who begged for their time is gone, replaced by someone who understands that the right people will never need convincing to stay. And that's the quiet beauty of not texting back. It's not about hurting them. It's not about punishing them. It's about rising above the entire dynamic. It's about proving to yourself and no one else that your story continues beautifully without their chapter. Because the best revenge is not revenge at all, it's happiness. It's peace. It's waking up one day and realizing you haven't thought about them in weeks. It's laughing again, dreaming again, living again, not because they apologized, but because you decided you deserve to. So when that message appears on your phone and your first instinct is to respond, remember this: you don't owe anyone access to you just because they suddenly want it. You don't owe them a second chance just because they realized they missed you. Your worth doesn't depend on who texts or who doesn't. And the most powerful thing you can do is build a life so fulfilling that the thought of texting them back feels like a step backward. Because in the end, the most devastating thing you can show someone who underestimated you is that you never needed them to become everything you were meant to be. And that's the kind of power no text could ever hold.